Today we're very excited to have with us Ty, Senior Engineer, and Rich Ferrise, Senior Director of Product Development and Technology at Comcast. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ty.
Yeah, my name is Ty. I'm a Senior Engineer at Comcast. Been with Comcast probably almost 10 years now. So my background is pretty much related to HTTP web services and mostly designing web services, and now I'm more involved in building platforms that that are related to HTTP. So my expertise is pretty much around HTTP web services. So I've been with Comcast a pretty long time. So I think I can talk more how Comcast was back then 10 years ago and now. So I'll be interested. I'll be very glad to share what I learned and how we came about. So, all right. And I'm going to hand over to Rich.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. This is Rich Ferrise. I'm currently Senior Director of Product Development and Technology inside of the Office of the CTO. So like I've been here for just a little bit over 8 years. And in those 8 years, I've kind of transitioned from various roles to where I am today, which is sort of leading a new product that we sort of call Xfinity on Campus, where we deliver IPTV services to universities that are Xfinity subscribers. So that's where we both sit. And like I came from the same cross-platform organization. So at one point we were in the same organization, and now I'm in a partnering organization. So we're happy to be here, and hopefully our experiences help.
Yep. I guess we have a wrap-up Q&A at the end. Just to give you guys some idea of what's going on. Okay. So the agenda. So we first we're going to talk about Comcast. I'm sure most people probably know about Comcast, but we're going to talk briefly about Comcast, who we are, and then we're going to dig right into the point of this webinar. So for example, making the shift to legacy system, right? We have we're an old company, and we have a lot of legacies API back then, and we're going to talk about how we switch from legacies API to new APIs, and using with the system that we built CodeBake with the partnership with Mashery, we built CodeBake system. We call it CodeBake, and how API management right is help us with the Comcast success in general and CodeBake success in general, and then of course what are the benefits or the things that we learn from having this CodeBake system as an internal API program. Okay, and then lastly will be a wrap up Q&A section. Okay, so let's get started. Hi, Rich.
So a little bit about Comcast as a company for those who don't know Comcast. We've been around. So like I said, it's not an old company by any stretch, but we've been around since 1963. So over the course of the last couple of decades, the company has taken a massive shift from, strictly television delivery to, just about commercial services today to service small, medium-sized businesses, home automation with our Xfinity Home product. Most people know us as a content provider or television provider. And then we've got, our second big one, but not to be understated, is high-speed internet and voice services. So all told, since the acquisition of NBC Universal, we're probably pushing a little over 125,000 employees worldwide. So it's a big, well-established machine.
So we're no longer, I guess, a cable company anymore. We're more, we're trying to be, well, we're trying, not trying, but we are looking forward to be more of a technology plus media company, right? So, all right. Here we go. So let's talk about legacy systems back in our days, 10 years ago at least my time with company. The legacy, it's a lot of it's old company, right? We don't have way of sharing data, right? A good, more efficient way of sharing data, and for us to get on board, it's a big company, right? So we to get this data, we have to go around and sort of know who they are internally, and sort of ask around, see what data you have and stuff like that. So there's some pain point there. So there's also no sort of centralized database, right? We have a lot of systems. We have billing, we have provision system, we have entitlement system. We have a bunch of data, like a bunch of database around in our system, and they kind of don't talk to each other. They're not really centralized, right? They do different things, and some of these don't even have APIs on top of this. So I mean, even if they do, they have SOAP and back in the day, right? And then but each of these APIs are actually owned by different teams. There's no really a centralized catalog of things that say, hey, you know what? These are the API, these are the data available, and these are the APIs, right? So back in the day, we're going to kind of have to go around and talk to people, and whether your peers or your executives or other executives, right? So and also, so there's years ago we have how we share data with even internally in some cases, and also especially externally with vendors, right? We have to build a sort of VPN tunnels to make this integration more secure, right? So unfortunately, building VPN tunnels or VPNs are very, at least to us, it was very, 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 very complex. Take a long time to get VPN, and it gets PN and get all these processes to follow. And also VPN, of course, most time it is a physical device, right? It's a bottleneck. It can be a bottleneck in some cases, which I ran into that problem too, where there was one device where it was running 100 megabits per second instead of running, so it can only handle so much. So there's some negative there. So, right. So just give you guys some idea of what we have to deal with. Next slide. I'm going to give this to Rich.
Yeah. So our competitive landscape, when we started to look at what CodeBig was and how it worked, we traditionally, when people ask a Comcast, what's your competitive landscape, people generally answer, DirecTV, Google, Apple, Netflix, right? You can go through that list of competitors, but what we started to find was the one thing that was not unique among our competitors were they were moving significantly faster than we were. And a couple of years ago, and we've got a really strong leadership team in place at Comcast, for those who don't know, but we had to make a very conscious decision that we had to stop thinking in legacy terms of appliances, integrators, and we had to start taking more ownership over developing our own software, integrating that software, and really managing the experience directly, which is what we've done. So a big part of what we've done in CodeBig is we sort of wanted to remove that and start the culture shift internally to get us away from this is what the vendor provided us and this is what we have to work with to this is what we're going to go build. And we've actually done a pretty good job in recent years. And for those who don't know, we've got under our chief software architect, Sri Kote, we've got a very software-driven platform methodology that we're implementing, and the verticals are now cleaner, they're well-defined, and CodeBig plays a major role in that because it exposes those platforms and those services easily. So one of the core tenets of CodeBig was we needed to be able to show somebody an API and a service, and they needed to be able to, within 5 minutes of finding it, they needed to be able to run a hit against it. They needed to be able to trivially consume that data that was there. And I think we've kind of done that. Yeah. At the same time, we've sort of blocked, in a traditional corporate structure, we had a lot of verticals that were locked. And if you wanted service, you had to send an email to somebody who sent it to somebody who got you back a Word doc who nobody knew if that was like from this decade or the last. So CodeBig was set up as that routing engine to get people to talk to each other and to become aware. Yeah. So a big part of our competitive landscape was we needed to internally shift the way we did things so that we could become faster and more competitive. Yeah. So to add that is to the second bullet, where we have in Comcast, we have a lot of departments. They own a lot of things, a lot of data. So there's a lot of we need to bring these departments together, kind of talk each other, right, through API tunneling and the API program that we have, right? So that's one of the challenges that we have to work out. So, okay.
So next slide. We're on slide 8. So why APIs, Rich?
I think what this one really boiled down to is about 4 or 5 years ago, we did a presentation at the time to my senior vice president. I think you were probably there. We did the presentation, and we just positioned it that we were so hell-bent to figure out what the next killer product was, and we basically went in and we basically said the next killer product is the API, is our APIs. That is the next killer product. We need to get up, we need to get on board, and we need to get these opened up, socialized. We needed an infrastructure or some sort of program that started to get people to talk to each other about APIs so we could start building communities around products internally. And that was really, we had to make these services easier to consume, and we had to get out of the game of this is the way the API works, take it or leave it. Mm-hmm. And that was, a big mission for Code Big was to get people to talk to each other and start that sort of campaign and that culture shift. And that's kind of what we did. We built those APIs. We built the first couple as products, mm-hmm. and we treated them as products. Yep. And we treated the API document as sort of sacred, and we treated the whole hit it, it's open, we can control it, have fun.
Yep. And then, of course, APIs they're meant to be reusable, right, by various clients. So that's our issue was, there's multiple clients, there's customer-facing clients that actually needs the same data. So, I mean, you can't just, ask them to, hey, just build your own and, connect them directly to the database, and here's our data, just go at it. But so we built an API on top of that just to make sure that we standardize the access model. For various clients, right? So, so I don't have to have a direct connect to the database or anything like that. So, okay. So, next slide. So how do we unlock legacy system, or how do we do it, and how we how do we start and how we came about today? So we built this CoBig, system as an internal API program for internal developers mainly. So it started out in 2008, and so we've been we knew that using RESTful API is very important for this platform, right? It's very it's stateless. Stateless is very important to us. So we've been promoting, evangelizing REST and API to internally, right? And so we start out with a dozen APIs across multiple departments, and then.
Well, I would just want to add there.
Yeah, sorry.
Even when we get to the RESTful APIs, we're actually, so while we believe very much in the RESTful philosophy, we did not dictate or govern any APIs that were put in the system. Yep. We were not here to judge or tell people how to construct their APIs. If they had an API and they found value in the CodeBig service, we would integrate it. Yep. We would let the consumers of those APIs drive those conversations directly with the API owners, because we did not want to find ourselves in a position where we had to normalize every API. They should all look the same. The data should be this format. It should be that format. Because what we found is that when we got into the governance, we got into a lot of pushback, and people do not trust that, right? I mean, given empowered to do the right thing, generally people will do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And we give them that. We want to make sure we don't enforce any kind of laws on these guys. That basically is what it is, right? I mean, REST is nice, right? It is awesome. It's just that we have to give the consumer or even the API owner to the right, give them flexibility, right? Okay, fine. SOAP, you can actually start it with SOAP today. The Mashery or the CodeBig platform does support it. It just, but we would like you to get to the REST model soon, or
and
hypermedia-ish, So that's one of the key. So CodeBig objectives. Of course. The objective was, as I mentioned earlier, the integration, the implementation, the integration between vendors and between our internal developers, very slow. So now, speed is very important. Speed to implementation is very important. Scale infrastructure in developer community, right? We want to build a very scalable infrastructure and a sort of a community. We never had this, so we want to build a developer community. So we want everyone to talk to each other. Standardized interface, of course. REST, of course. Also OAuth interface. OAuth standards. We want to standardize the whole SS model. Of course, and also the other objective is foster innovation, right? Internally, externally if need be, but we want to use this as a innovation, right? So, next slide. Just quickly, want to go over the CodeBig architecture using Mashery. So we have Akamai. So it's a combination. CodeBig is basically a combination of Akamai, Mashery, Heroku. Well, Heroku, we use Heroku for like Portal, Live Docs, and tools, stuff like that. And we have a combination of and Comcast, right? So this is just to give you an overview of what CodeBig is. If you have any question, just email me directly, and then I'll be glad to go over what we implement for CodeBig. And then there's also another question. People tend to ask why use Akamai. I can tell you all about it offline. If you just email directly, I will be glad to tell you what I learned, why we use Akamai. Okay. So why API management? Why CodeBig? Right. So CodeBig is REST and OAuth is very stateless. So we want, and then so it's perfect for the cloud. So the API management, we can actually have a cloud-based solution. And also to improve, and then also on-prem, right? So to improve performance. So security, of course. So we want, like I mentioned earlier, we want to standardize the security model, right? We have a bunch of security stuff that we legacy security that we implement years ago. So we want to standardize that, right? We want a standardized way to access the API, and OAuth 2.0 is a perfect example for that, right? So everyone use that, and everyone follows that as a standard. Awesome for API access externally, internally. So also why CodeBig? It's also we want to centralize API, right? So we have a bunch of API. I believe we have 80 plus APIs in our company. So we want to create this catalog, right? Of for example, a developer goes in and say, hey, I want to access stories, I want to access high-speed data. Which API it is, and they can just go in and browse the API catalog and say, hey, this is how I get it. So, and also of course. Part of CodeBig is part of the CodeBig is to give powerful developer tools, right? It's one-stop shop portal that can help the developers and also the API owner, right? Developers can browse the APIs and see what API is available so that they can develop their application. So we treat our internal programs like as would externally. If we were to open this to the public, we would treat the same way what we do. We actually treat the internal developers the same as we would do for the public. So that's the whole idea behind it. So the results, right? So we've done all that, and we have all this philosophy that we follow. We treat the for developers, API consumers, and owners as customers, right? There's internal. They're called Comcast employees, but we treat them as customers. As a result, we have API plus, and counting. We have a lot of APIs, and CodeBig is there to give the developer the catalog of that. And also, APIs are becoming ingrained in Comcast culture right now. Everyone think about API. Everyone thought about, oh wow, I want an API. I want to be on a CodeBig because it gives me the flexibility of integrate with vendors and always security model. I mean, there's a whole slew of goodness. So, and also the result, right? Building CodeBig, we from sharing data, integrating with even internally, externally. We have internally. I mean, we used to take us 4 or 5 weeks to integrate, right? To able to talk one from one system to another system. Now we have CodeBig in place. We can narrow down to hours, and sometimes like 15 minutes for me to go in and get stuff done. So, and also integration with vendor, right? Vendor. We used to use a VPN for this, and it takes literally 4 or 5 weeks to get this, and now it just takes within hours. So, and also flourishing developer community, so fostering community and stuff like that. So another result is improved customer-facing products, right? So time to speed, time to market, we have better choice. So this is more a result of how the CodeBig traffic. We started in 2010, and now we're almost, I mean, our traffic is about 1.6 billion requests a month now. So from 2010. So that is a huge growth. I mean, I think we're expecting 2 billion by the end of this month, this year. So, and also resolve more endpoints created, right? So we have about 300 plus endpoints, 80 plus API, but we have a lot of endpoints behind the APIs. So this is just give you some example of the application that CodeBig use that they use CodeBig APIs in CodeBig. So this is our Xfinity app that allows the customer to check voicemail and all that. I'm sorry, I'm under time, a little bit of time, so I'm gonna time crunch right here, so I'm gonna go a little quicker. But again, if you want to talk to me, chat offline, I would love to share my thoughts. And also another example, we developed a platform called Xfinity Text Machine, right? So this sits behind CodeBig. So a lot of apps right now, they're actually accessing this API, this platform behind CodeBig. So again, I want to reiterate benefits of internal API program, right? CodeBig. CodeBig is all about centralizing data, right? Centralizing API, catalogs of API data, how to access data from a legacy system. So this is to show you the portal, the internal developer portal that we built for CodeBig, right? For developers and API owners to come in and manage their API and also see their API performance and all that stuff. So get keys. Streamline data sharing, of course, right? We don't want to want to make sure that we don't build can tell each other with data, and also we don't make sure we don't overlapping building the same API that have providing the same data. So that there's no like overlapping or copying or duplicate of data, right? So next one, build a community. I think I keep on mentioning building community, right? It's very important, for everyone to chat each other, right? To kind of have that community. Say, hey, what API do you have? What are you doing? What are you doing? So this CodeBig is part of that that culture. Or that part of the goal of that is building a community. We didn't have it back then, and we're still trying to build that community right now. Scale and growth, right? Again, used to take out weeks. Now it takes us a few minutes or hours to integrate with other vendors and even internally. And also, right? There's also we have APIs. As API created, we have this portal that can the engineer can log in, engineer and developer can log in and single sign on and to access the APIs and to find out the API, what the API does, and all that. And also, we have a solution on cloud, on-prem, external cache, and ready to increase traffic, right? So that's how we scale, right? We have caching and we have a hybrid solution. We have on-cloud and on-prem to support both the increased traffic, like it's traumatic, it's huge traffic that we're getting right now. So let's wrap up. Let me put all the points here. So I guess Rich, you can start with the wrap up and.
Yeah, so I think we're open to comments and suggestions, right? But I think the general takeaway from us for CodeBig was we sort of needed to take a shift and we needed to provide some sort of infrastructure without governance, right? We wanted to provide something to the general Comcast community that we knew we needed. So we didn't want developers running off and rebuilding something that really kind of already exists. So we sort of sold the entire platform as there's value here, we believe there's value here, try it. And that's what led to all the growth that we had. So, I mean, we had a lot of executive sponsors. I mean, our CTO was very active in this in the beginning, and he said, there was a lot of support at the executive tier for us to do this. And it paid off, right? I mean, we provided a very easy to use, well understood routing mechanism so people could find services and APIs and then find who owns them and then find out if they could use them. And we've had a lot of innovative things come out of CodeBig in the last couple of years where people are now mashing up APIs that traditionally would have never been considered to be mashed up. Anything from a voicemail application on an X1 set-top box to a new mobile app. It's been kind of crazy what people are doing. And when we have our hackathons or our lab weeks, I mean, people come flooding into CodeBig and they're like, I want to use this, this, and this. Yeah. So, I mean, it's paying dividends and it's
they come and say, they're like, oh, what APIs do you have? Yep. Can I do this? Stuff like that. So that community sense is there too. Yep.
But I think we're almost out of time. But
yeah.
Have any questions, because we monopolized the full 30 minutes?
Oh, one last note I want to say is, you know, CodeBig is prepared. If we're going to open our APIs to the public, you know, CodeBig will allow, you know, platform will allow us to do that, right? So that's something that, you know, we have it in mind. But that's it for now. The wrap up, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give this back to our organizer here.
Thank you so much, Rich, and hi. So if you have any questions, please type them now in the chat window on the bottom right. And we already have a couple flowing in. And so let's take the first one. What is the major difference between SOA and APIs?
The religious debate.
Well, yeah, let me turn off my camera. Yeah, here. Okay. Well, SOA is more of an architecture sort of a methodology. It's software. It's not. API is part of SOA, right? So like SOAP API is an API. It's a way. It's an API, right? REST is an API method, right? API way of building API. So service-oriented. I mean, REST API is sort of service-oriented, but it takes SOAP to the next level. So more of more resources, more of related to application flow and leveraging the HTTP. Right? SOAP has kind of never sort of leveraged the HTTP, what HTTP can offer. Right. So SOA, like let me rephrase it. SOA is just it can be REST or REST or SOAP, right? On top of SOA, there's REST and there's SOAP.
But
and
I think
there's all different methods, way of doing things.
For what we did, we avoided that whole problem altogether, because what we found in the early days of CodeBig is we were starting to get into religious debates over which API structure, blah blah blah, and we finally just disconnected from it, and we said, listen, this is an infrastructure you can use if you want to bring SOAP, if you want to bring REST, if you want to bring SOA, you want to bring JSON, you want to bring XML. Just whatever you have, bring it, because the important thing for us was to open the platform and the services that were traditionally walled off to other people. So we almost didn't even argue the API structure debate. While there is still a very strong core team that is, very focused on like now moving into hypermedia type APIs to follow that RESTful philosophy, it's not one size fits all in a company this big. So I mean, we left the SOAP people. We argued with them for a couple of weeks, and then we said it's really not helping us do anything by having this debate, so we just let them make their own decisions.
So usually SOA is usually associated with SOAP, right? So it's more of, you have a bunch of services and just operation. That's pretty much what it is, right? So REST is more of taking, you have a service, you have a bunch of operation, but then it's much more than that. Like you have caching, you have security and all that. So, right?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. So we have time for one more question. And so the next question we have is, how have APIs changed the culture within Comcast?
I mean, I can tell you, since I'm sort of on the Converged platform team, which is the one that delivers X1, the actual next generation video platform, everything we do is centralized around loosely coupled systems, right? And in order to have those loosely coupled systems, you need well understood, trivial, easy to consume APIs that don't require a ton of documentation. But we are now starting to build platforms, services, and all that whole world revolves around APIs, right? We've got to open everything up, and we've got to get to a point where people internally don't get hindered by, processes, obstacles, governance, and our API strategy is a very big piece of that.
Yep.
Perfect.
Makes sense?
Yeah, thank you guys so much.